Since I first drove the Jaguar I-Pace back in December of last year, I've driven many EVs, tested them here on the channel, done range tests, reviews, charging tests, and all of the fun stuff. So today's question is, do I still like the Jaguar I-Pace and would I still recommend it? One of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because the car I reviewed back in December was a fully spec'd HSC with basically all the bells and whistles. It had this beautiful deep blue color with a beautiful brown leather interior, and the beautiful wheels. This car though is a spec called the Advanced S. It's actually a campaign model that is sold here in Norway, so link in description box down below if you want to check out the details. And it actually only costs 629,000 kroners. This is also the EV320, which is basically, the lower powered version of the I-Pace with only 320 horsepower, does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.4 seconds. But you still have the same 90 kilowatt hour gross battery capacity, WLTP range of 470 kilometers. But what is interesting is that the exterior of this has pretty much, the same appearance, except for these wheels that people seem to love and hate. And I do understand. So these are 18 inches and the tire size is 235/65/18. And we don't see this much sidewall in many modern cars today, especially, electric SUVs like this or premium vehicles. And I do understand that people think this is ugly. I actually don't mind them, though I would probably prefer the bigger wheels. But the nice thing about these is that you have this sidewall. So the comfort level in this car is quite amazing. This is also on air suspension. And also, the narrow tires should give this car, especially on, rainy pavement, it should give it better range. But, the look of the I-Pace is kind of a mixed bag in my opinion, because like when I see this in the nice spec with the big wheels, I think they're beautiful. In this spec, it's kind of okay. And yeah, I mean, it's not offensive, and I actually do like this silver paint color. And that black strip down there with the Jaguar, breaks up the lines. But is it just me, or does it have like this weird shape where it has this cab forward design where the windshield is pushed all the way almost over the front wheels, and then it rakes backwards. Rakes from the tail quite quickly, that fast back look. And I'm not totally sold on this. But maybe let's take a look at the interior, and that will, give this car some redeeming points. But as for the exterior, it's kind of a mixed bag. I like the last spec I had much better than this. So the I-Pace has keyless entry and keyless go. So I just have the key in my pocket, and then you can see the door handles are hidden in the door or flush with the door. And then you press this button here with the key in your pocket, and the door handles, come out of the door. And I think that is actually quite cool, even though it is a bit gimmicky. I actually think it is quite cool. And no other cars do this also, but I don't know, it's just cool. So this is where maybe you can see that this is a cheaper version of the I-Pace, because it doesn't have leather seats, it doesn't have much optional extras. And this fabric at first looks like leather, but it's actually this, it almost feels like a wetsuit fabric, but it is actually very nice to the touch. It feels nice and soft, and it doesn't look too bad though. I always prefer leather because I think that looks better, feels better, smells better. This actually isn't too bad. And then you have the doors here where you have, this leatherette finish or faux leather, which I don't know, it's kind of, I would have rather had, a soft touch plastic here, because the quality of the actual, material here isn't the best, though I do think it's nice that they wrap, the door, the handle, grab handle here, and yeah. And then you have, piano black plastic here, which I think it's okay because it's not at a touch point, but you do have a lot here in the car that just gets, very dusty. And then you have the steering wheel. I do actually like the steering wheel of the I-Pace, even though it has, you know, these touch buttons. For some reason, because you have some physical buttons here, and the layout, it works much better than something like in a Volkswagen ID car, where here you have, you know, a scroll wheel for your volume, and then you have a physical button for your cruise control up and down here. You just have enough interaction, which is mechanical, to just make it actually work. And then you have some aluminum here trim, metal trim. I think it actually does look nice, but you can see more of that, you know, look how dusty that, yeah, I should have dusted this, but I mean, it gets so quickly dusty, this piano black finish. But you know, the interior quality is overall nice. It does feel high quality. And then you have the center console here, which is different from any other car. You have the infotainment system. I mean, that works perfectly fine. It's actually not bad at all. And then you have more touch screens here, but you also have, you know, some physical buttons. You have the gear selector, which is digital with these buttons. I mean, it does get it does take some getting used to. I'm not a huge fan. I would rather have a mechanical shifter, but I mean, you can't expect that in all cars today. And this is quite cool. So you have this anodized aluminum here on the stalks, which just, you know, gives it this extra quality feeling. So I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, even though this doesn't have the leather or much upgrades, this is a proper premium cabin. This does have the Meridian sound system, and look at those beautiful speaker grills. I mean, not a lot of cars does this better at this price point. I mean, probably a Volvo, but not talking about, you know, an electric Volvo, because that would be an XC40, wouldn't have this nice you know, grills. So I mean, the overall cabin feel and ambiance and atmosphere here is very premium. So you have more of that faux leather here on the dashboard, and here it actually does work quite nice. And then you have a different type of soft touch material here, which I mean, it looks fine. And then you have more of that glossy black plastic over there, which just is a nightmare to keep clean. But I mean, the design of the interior, the door design is pretty nice. And then, you know, you have some huge cup holders down here. You have a large armrest here with some storage. And then you have this area here, which I mean, looks kind of weird, but it's actually quite practical just to have stuff. I have my keys, my phone, and stuff like that. And this also has, you know, the panoramic glass roof. I mean, the back seat is quite a nice size. It's not the biggest, but it is big enough. And then let's quickly just take a look at the trunk, because this car is quite practical. But look at the back seat here. I mean, this seat is put quite a ways back, and it is roomy. I mean, it's not like something like an Audi e-tron, but I would put it comparably to a Mercedes-Benz EQC, electric liftgate, and you have, you know, this quite huge trunk space. So let's take this car out on the road, and I'll tell you guys what I think about the driving experience. Where the Jaguar I-Pace really comes into its own is in the driving experience. I mean, it may not have the prettiest exterior in this spec, and the interior may not be, you know, the biggest, the most practical, or even the most luxurious or modern, but it does the job. It works as it's intended. But it's when you take this I-Pace out on the road is that, you know, you get that true luxury car experience, because the cabin is quiet. Yes, this does have the double glazed windows. At motorway speed, it's so silent. I mean, it's not as silent as something like an Audi e-tron, which is, you know, at the top of the silent scale of just about any car that isn't a super luxurious car. But this is quiet. It's smooth riding, as I said, you know, here on this road here. It does have, you know, the 18-inch wheels with the big sidewall. You know, may help with that. But I mean, just the overall ambiance, the way it handles itself, and the way it just masks its weight, because like every other EV, this is big, especially, you know, having that big of a battery pack. But it's, you know, the way it handles, the way it feels. So the steering is very nice, very sharp and direct, and nicely weighted. And, you know, here, you know, getting some speed on this country road, I mean, it's quiet, it's silent, I don't have to raise my voice, but it's also agile, even in comfort mode, you know, just going through some twisty roads. It's just a nice car to drive. It's more engaging than something like a Mercedes-Benz EQC or an Audi e-tron. You know, it's easily the sportiest and most engaging electric SUV, you know, of this size, of this caliber, and it just makes driving the car, yeah, a pleasurable experience. So yeah, I really like just taking this car out on the road and going for a drive. To answer my initial questions, do I still like the Jaguar I-Pace and would I recommend it? Yes, I actually still like the Jaguar I-Pace, even in this more basic, less luxurious, less equipped version. I very much like the I-Pace, but I'm a huger fan of the interior and the way it drives than the exterior. But again, you could fix that with you know, optioning different wheels. I think it would be a, yeah, good looking car. But again, yeah, I'm back and forth every other day about the looks of this car. Secondly, would I recommend it? Yeah, I would recommend it. I mean, its closest competition is probably the Mercedes-Benz EQC, and this does offer a bigger battery pack, meaning more range. You don't get the same performance in this as the EQC 400, which would be, you know, the equivalently priced car. Maybe this is cheaper with this package. And you do get air suspension on all four wheels with this, meaning you also have better ride height, because in the EQC you only have rear suspension on the rear axle and the ride height is only about 12 or 13 centimeters, not much more than in a traditional car. Here you actually get that, you know, that proper ride height, and you can also raise the suspension. So, you know, this car does have some things that I like more than the EQC. The EQC has a nicer interior, it would be also more powerful, but this is more sporty and more engaging. And also here in Norway, this may also be a little bit more rare and more special. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below, and for more car content, as always guys, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.
Cloudless skies in the midday sun.